Hey, Jacqueline Kozak here, and I wanted to very quickly go through citing 3 different types of sources in APA format. I'm only going to be showing you the end text citation, not how to cite inside of the essay itself. This is just to help you go through and basically check the work that your citation generator might be doing for you. So let's start with a website, and I have a website here, Psychology Today. And the first thing we need to know when we are citing an APA is, of course, the author name. We do care about who wrote this, and we start with the author's last name. In this case, it is A-A-L-A-I, comma, and then the first initial, in this case, A. Directly after the name, and this is the rule of thumb in APA, the very next thing is always the date. And in this case, it is going to be the year, so 2019, comma, and then the month, and then the day, and parentheses, and then a period. So this will depend on whether or not you have the actual day. So for websites that may just have the year, you would only put the year here, obviously. And if there is absolutely no date, you've looked everywhere, you can't find one, you would say N period D period, no date. And this is to show that you haven't just been lazy, you've actually looked and there's really no date. But you have to put it in there, you can't just omit it. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is we need to include the title. And here is where it gets a little bit funny, is that you're going to use sentence case. If you are familiar with APA format, you're going to find that this feels really weird. But it needs to be, basically, it needs to look like a sentence. So I'm not going to capitalize the P in plagiarism here like I would in a title. And then we can put the subtitle if you want. It's going to be after a colon. And then you could put the whole thing. Is there an epidemic of cheating on college campuses? Question mark. Okay. Now, normally we'd put a period here, but in this case there's a piece of punctuation, so we'll leave it off. The next thing we're going to include is the name of the website, not like psychologytoday.com, but the actual name. And we're going to capitalize it just like it's shown here. So Psychology Today, and with a period, and then the URL. You can just copy it and paste it, and that will be fine. And if you don't have a date, you're probably going to want to put when you retrieved this. So you would say retrieved and say when you actually got it. In this case, it's not necessary. We're just going to go with it having a date here. So let's move on to the next major type that you might see. In this case, it is from a newspaper, the New York Times. And so let's go down to the authors. There are 3 of them, so we need to include all 3, and we will include them in the order in which they appear on the page. So B-E-L-S-H-A, comma, K, period. So we're only using first initials, and then we're going to include all of them. And we're separating all of those with commas. And then Higgins, L, period. Okay, so those are our 3 authors. And now you want to put an and before the last one. I can't remember if you need to. I generally do. I think it's less confusing this way. I'll double check and see if you have to do that or not. Anyhow, and so we're going to go ahead and put the title of the article next, just like a website. I'm going to be lazy and copy and paste it. Oops, I hate when it does that. Okay, there we go. So we have this title that I copied and pasted, but there's a problem here, obviously, right? It is not in sentence case. This is what we would call title case. Notice that you have the capital L, capital S here. So if you are inside Google, you can go into text, capitalization, and you can change it to lowercase, and then you can just go fix it. So I still needs to be capitalized. COVID, because it's a proper term, needs to be capitalized. A in American needs to be capitalized. Okay, now here's the thing. This is the opposite of how a website is. So the website, you notice that the title of the article was in italics. In this case, the title of the newspaper is in italics. The New York Times. Okay? And then you put a period after the end of it. And same deal, you're going to put the URL. You have to include the URL. Let's be really honest here. We're getting most of our sources from online places, and so you need to give the reader a way to go back and look over in case they're like, oh, that's super interesting. How do I figure that out? Well, they go to the URL. So let's go for the third major type of citation that we might get, which is an academic article. And there's this academic article by Jennifer Strangfeld. So again, same deal. We're going to go with the author first, Strangfeld, comma, J period. And then, oh no, did you realize I missed something in my newspaper? I forgot to put the date of this. Shame on me. My goodness. Let's go find the date of this article. 19th March, 2022. So let's put it in parentheses, 2022, March 19. Whew. You'll know you've missed something in your APA citations if you don't have a date immediately following the author. There's always going to be a date afterwards. Okay, so in this case, this article by Strangfeld came out, as it says here, in 2019. So we can go ahead and put that there. 2019. Now, just like the rest of them, you're going to go ahead and put the title, just like the rest of them. So you can, same deal, put a period after the date, and then you can put the article title. And again, you have to fix the capitalization here. So if you want to, you can just go into Format, Text, Capitalization, make it lowercase, and then fix whatever's wrong. Anything that comes after a colon, the first word has to be capitalized. So notice I did this automatically here. I forgot to mention it because I'm just so used to it, but you have to put a capital after a colon. Okay, so then the next thing, you put a period at the end of the title, just like I've done on the rest of them. The next thing is going to be the name of the journal. In this case, it's hard to tell what it is, but it's called Sage Open. And we're going to capitalize it just how it is there, Sage Open. Notice how I did Sage in all caps. That is exactly how the journal is. So you're going to put that in the same capitalization. Now you're going to put a comma. And you're looking for something really interesting. You're looking for the basically when it came out, and then you also need to get what's called the volume and the number. And so the easiest way to do that is actually to go back and find the original and look at the journal. Sometimes it's listed on here. In this, it's not super clear what the version and number is. So if you have this DOI, it's always really helpful. Or if you see this check for updates, that will always take you to a good place to where you can get to the DOI and just click through. And so, oh my goodness, I don't want to see your cookies. Let's take a look at this. So here we go. If we go into the article information, here we go, volume 9, issue 1. And so that was the information we needed here. So the volume goes first, so it's volume 9, and then in parentheses the issue. You put a comma, and then you put the page range that this is on. So if we go back to the actual article itself, so page range 1, it isn't marked there, but we have 2 here, so we can assume this is page 1 through 14. Okay, so pages 1 through 14, comma, and then what's always really good is if you can get the DOI is great, but what you want is a URL that people can go back to. Again, all of this is about helping your reader come back to this. So you can, ideally, if you see this DOI, which is a unique identifier for any academic article, you can just use that. And I find that to be the most helpful because no matter where you are or what you're doing, it will be there. So let's go ahead and paste that in there. Okay, so now there's a problem with all of these. They need to be double spaced, and I prefer Times New Roman. It does need to be size 12. I prefer Times New Roman, although that isn't strictly necessary. And then it's this little guy that lets you do double spacing. And we still need to do what is called a hanging indent. If you're not familiar with hanging indent, the nicest way to do it is just to play with these little dots up here. You'll pull this into a 1/2 inch, and then this little line at the top, you'll pull it back to 0, and that will make your hanging indent work. Pretty easy. If you prefer menus, you can go into the format menu. It is under align and indent, and it is the last option, indentation options, and you'll see the option at the bottom for hanging indent 1/2 inch. And there you go. Now you know how to cite web pages, and this is where the title is in italics. Newspapers, this is where the newspaper name is in italics. And, ooh, look, I forgot some italics here. I was wrapping this up without doing it. And academic journals, where the academic journal name and the volume number are in italics. So you're going to put both of those in italics. Everything should have at least one thing in italics. You should have a date associated with every single one. Even if there's no date, you have to put it, and it should always be the second item in line. The date is always going to come right after the authors, and it's always going to be author last name, first initial, last name, first initial. And luckily, look at this. This is already in alphabetical order, so we're all set. Hope this helps. If you have any questions, ask your professor.